How's everybody doing on this lovely Friday? It is today's Friday live stream. I'm going to be going solo today on this live stream, but I'm going to be here answering your questions about the app, nutrition, training, anything like that. So if you guys have questions, once we get some people in here, we'll get going with the questions for today. Like I said, I hope everybody's having a great Friday. It's amazing here. The weather's really nice, really sunny in Michigan. So finally able to enjoy it. Let's see, we're getting some people here. 33 people. Guys, if you have questions, either put them in the question box on Instagram or in the comments. Hopefully I can see them in the comments, but sometimes the comments go kind of fast. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, post a comment and I will see it in my live stream software and I'll get to answering your guys' questions. Happy Saturday from New Zealand. So you're in the future. That's awesome. How is it in the future? Let's see here. Got some questions going. Let's see. How many of you guys use Carbon Diet Coach currently? Let me know if you guys are currently subscribed and what you guys think about the app. Fantastic. All right. So we got a first question here on Instagram. What is the recommended amount of time to be in a deficit? Well, that completely depends. It depends on so many different things. Usually you want to tailor that to how much weight you have to lose. So if you have a lot of weight to lose, you might need to be in a deficit for longer. And if you have a lot of weight to lose, you can sustain a deficit for longer. So you have more body fat stores, so it's not going to be as difficult for you to stay in a deficit if you have a ton of body fat to lose. But if you're leaner, it is going to be harder to lose body fat, and it's also going to be not a good idea to stay in a deficit for too long. So there's kind of like a sliding scale. It's really hard to give you a specific amount of time, but if you are feeling the diet and the deficit and it's getting difficult, hunger's high, you're thinking about binging and all that stuff, like then I would definitely get out of a deficit. So yeah, it's going to be dependent. Sorry, I can't give you a specific time there. I'm on a holiday. I'm on a holiday with no access to scales or suitable food until Friday. What's the best way to get back on it? Don't want to mess up the science. So if you don't have access to scales, like that's fine. You don't have to weigh yourself daily. It's a good idea to weigh yourself daily, but you don't have to. And so I would still try to stay on track with your macros while you're on holiday, and just weigh yourself when you get back and check into the coach normally. Like if you don't want to screw things up, don't do anything funky with the app. Just check in. If you're compliant, mark compliant. If you're not compliant, mark that you were not compliant, and then just let the app take over from there. So the more you kind of like try to game the system and like not saying you are or anything, but the more you mess with it and do weird things, the more weird recommendations it's going to give you. So the app basically just it responds to the inputs that you put into it. So if those things are kind of screwy, then the app's going to give some bad recommendations. But as long as you are consistent in the things you're doing, you don't have to worry about screwing things up. Let's see. What is the most practical way to do a diet break without throwing off the coach with added water weight during your week on maintenance calories? So John, there's many ways to do it. We don't currently have a diet break feature in the app, so you have to kind of work within the system to try to make a diet break work. We do want to add a diet break feature in the future, but I'm not sure when we'll be able to that. But for now, the thing you're going to have to do And what I recommend people doing is to try to avoid uh, messing with things too much. So if you change your goal like every couple weeks to maintenance to do a diet break, I think that's a bad idea because it's going to really throw off the coach. So the coach is expecting you to stay on a goal for a longer period of time, and choosing the maintenance setting in the coach isn't necessarily a diet break setting. So it's not really made to be used for diet breaks. So if you're changing to maintenance, you're changing your goal, and it's going to cause the coach to not look at your averages if you're constantly switching goals. So what I recommend doing is going into the me section, looking at where the coach has your estimated maintenance at currently, then just set some custom macro targets in the tracker based on those calories. And then all you need to do is follow those custom macros for your diet break week. Then once your diet break week is done, check in on your check-in day, mark yourself non-compliant because you ate at maintenance when the coach wanted you to eat in a deficit, mark non-compliant, and then just move on from there. So just doing custom macros, keeping your goal the same, and marking non-compliant is going to be the situation that causes the least amount of issues, in my opinion. So that's what I recommend doing. But hopefully, like I said, in the future, we'll have some diet break setting that makes this seamless. But until then, that's what you got to do, unfortunately. So Amanda, hopefully that answers it. What's up, Lerone? How you doing, man? Well, the week. Oh, hold on. What's up? Week I lost more than expected and got a bump in calories, and the same thing is going to happen again this week. Is this a reverse diet without it being a reverse when I'm in fat loss? Is it because my NEAT is going up? So if your NEAT is going up, yes, the coach is going to sense that, and it's going to adjust the calories accordingly. So you could be increasing your NEAT without knowing it. NEAT is pretty kind of subconscious type movements, so it could be happening like that. Your activity level, it can change quite a bit. So that might be what's happening, but it's really hard to say exactly, Lerone, what's happening with you. But I would just ride it out, see what happens, and try not to change your goals too much. All right, back to Instagram. All right. Why does it keep those in there? Okay, as you get better at cardio, say running, do you burn less calories, lower heart rate, but faster pace? So yeah, you adapt to everything you do, so including cardio. So if you are a person that has done zero cardio, you are adapted to doing zero cardio. And then if you introduce cardio into your plan, you're going to burn quite a few calories because it's something your body is not necessarily used to. And over time, it becomes more efficient at doing that exercise. So you actually end up burning fewer calories over time the more you do cardio. So you can get to a place where you're doing a ton of cardio and not necessarily burning a ton of calories in proportion to the amount of cardio that you're doing. It's not like you're going to completely adapt, to it, but there is some adaptation, just like with dieting. There's adaptation to eating fewer calories. There's also adaptation to doing a lot of cardio or not much cardio. So I try to make it a goal for myself and for clients to get to a place where they're able to maintain their weight on not doing really any cardio, unless they have a very inactive lifestyle. Let's say they have a normal active lifestyle. I like to get them to a place where they're doing zero cardio, because then when you introduce it during a fat loss phase, you end up getting a lot more bang for your buck in terms of time and calories burned. So yeah, try to get to a place, if you are kind of setting yourself up for a fat loss phase, try to get to a place where you're maintaining on doing really no cardio, and then introduce it when you do your fat loss phases. And you should keep weight training all throughout. all those phases. So that's kind of the base of everything, is keeping a good weight training program in. But cardio, I like to kind of do a phased approach. All right. Jennifer asks, when you check in and say whether you were compliant with macros, is that looking at the range and comparing to the average? If 1 to 2 way off day, and were you non-compliant even within weekly averages? Not sure what that sentence means. Will it change your macros ever if you make progress, whether you say you're compliant or not? So if you say you're non-compliant, the coach will never make any adjustments to your macros, because the priority of a coach is to get you to be consistent with your diet first and foremost, to be able to hit certain macro targets. Once you are able to hit those macro targets, that's when a coach is going to really evaluate what's happening, what is happening to your body while eating those macros. Then all they need to do is really adjust those macros to change the other side of things to see the progress that you want. So really, first and foremost, you want to be able to hit the macro targets, and that's why we don't adjust if you're non-compliant. Because if you're non-compliant and you're not consistent, it's going to be like a moving target constantly, where we're trying to adjust based on what you ate, but then the next week you ate different, and it's just all over the place. It's so hard to really fine-tune things if you're not compliant. So get compliant first and foremost, and then the coach will do its thing. And we've talked about in the future being able to still use some of that data from your non-compliant weeks. We currently don't really use any of that data because we just don't have anything built in to use that week's data. But in the future, we want to be able to allow it to use some of it, because there is some valuable insight you can gain from a non-compliant week's data that we could use to do certain things. So, but right now, nothing happens when you're non-compliant, and we don't really use that data. You are welcome. Okay, Helen is asking, can you explain a bit more about what a reverse diet is, please? Currently in a deficit, but would love to learn more. So reverse dieting is basically the opposite of dieting. You want to undo a lot of the things that happen when you are dieting. And so when you diet, your metabolism slows down. You get very efficient at processing protein, carbs, fats, and burning calories, and your body burns fewer calories for everything that you do, really. And so over time in a deficit, the deficit kind of just, let's say you keep your calories the same and you're losing weight. Over time, that deficit is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking because your metabolism is slowing and slowing and slowing over time. So when you diet, that's why you need to make adjustments. You first get yourself into a deficit, ride that out for as long as you can, make progress. And then once you stop making progress, or progress really slows, then that means that deficit is really shrunk, and then you want to make an adjustment, and then you'll go down. But that's the dieting side. Now, reverse dieting, you want to do the opposite, where you're going to slowly. So to start a reverse diet, you typically want to start at your estimated maintenance, where you're at the end of your deficit. So where your estimated maintenance is at is going to be different than where you started your diet at, the maintenance. So it's going to be based on, the calories you're eating and how your body's responding. That's where you want to start a reverse diet, is where you're able to maintain your current weight. And then what you do is you slowly increase calories over time to stimulate your metabolism, to help it to speed up back to more normal levels. And like just the same way you can adapt by slowing down your metabolism, you can adapt by speeding it up if you increase calories slowly. So if there's a small amount of calories introduced each week, your body often just speeds up its metabolic rate to adapt to that higher intake without adding any weight. So you can often do these small increases over time for quite a while before you notice any weight gain. And the goal of a reverse diet is really to get your metabolism to a healthy place and to see how high you can push it. Some people reverse diet for way too long, where they end up gaining too much body fat, and then they want to diet, and then they're kind of in this cycle of, dieting, reverse dieting, reverse dieting, and never really being happy. So I think there's a sweet spot for how long you reverse diet, which will set you up for success. Let's say you're doing a deficit, you don't really reach your goal weight, but your metabolism's too slow to be able to stay consistent with your calories. Then you want to reverse diet, get it back to a good level. You're going to want to do another cut because you want to get to your goal weight. But hopefully the second time around when you diet, it'll be a little bit easier and you'll be able to reach that goal weight. And then once you reach the goal weight, then reverse diet to a place where you are comfortable with the calories and your body composition. It's kind of like a balancing act with where you want to stop reverse dieting. But hopefully that's helpful. Thank you for the question, Helen. We've been told not to switch the coach to maintenance when doing diet break. Instead, eat at our estimated maintenance, and then the coach is giving and marked non-compliant. But how will I know I eat the right macros if I don't switch? And how can I calculate that myself? Good question, Sarah. So you can easily see the calories that the coach is going to start you out at. And so you do this by going to the me section and then looking at the charts, looking at the calories that, looking at maintenance calories. So there'll be a maintenance calorie data point that you can look at, and you can see what your maintenance calories are estimated to be at, or metabolic rate. And what you'll do is you'll go to the most recent value, and those are the calories that you want to eat for your diet break week. Then then protein is kept pretty consistent throughout any dieting phase, so you want to keep that the same. So you already have protein taken care of, you know the calories. So if you are a person that just does protein and calories, you're good there. You already know what you need to do. If you also want to have some carb and fat targets, then you can split them up. And the way that you split them up, if you want to do it the way the app does, look at what your diet preference is, and it shows you the ratio between them. It says, like by default, the balance is like 55% carbs, calories. So after protein's removed, 55% of calories would go to carbs, 45% of calories would go to fat. So you could easily do the math on that and to figure out the carb and fat split if you want. So hopefully that helps, Sarah. All right. Let's see. Are you the AI developer for Carbon app? I actually, along with Lane and Holly, we all developed the algorithm for the app. So in a way, yes. All right. What new big features will be coming to Carbon? We are currently focused on improving performance right now. So we feel like the app has a very good base of features that 95% of people are going to be happy with. There are a few features that we want to add in the future, but right now we're really focused on performance and making sure that it performs well on even old devices, all kinds of devices and stuff. So that's really our main priority right now. We're kind of doing a partial rewrite of the app to make it more performant, to do things in a better way. So hopefully that sets us up for a really good future where we have a really solid base that we can build on and introduce new features without breaking things or without slowing down the app. Like that's going to be priority number one. I know you guys really want like more features in the app, but we want to first make sure that everything is completely solid, the base is good. Then we can build on there, and we should be able to introduce new features more quickly. Plans to integrate with the workout builder. We don't have any plans of that right now. All right. If I'm using Carbon calories assigned by a human coach, do I always mark non-compliant? So if you're not using the coach portion of carbon and just using the food tracker, you would set some custom macro targets in the food tracker and then just track your food there and not even check in or worry about the coach at all. So if you're using a human coach to coach you, I recommend not using the coach, so you would never check in. All right. Um, so just started the app, just starting the app, around 135 pounds, 5'5", and doing it for fat loss. Don't know what to put as my goal weight. I don't think 135 is necessarily bad. So the goal weight, the coach doesn't really use the goal weight in its calculation. It really just uses the goal weight to put some kind of time frame on your goal. So what you do with the coach is you set a weekly rate of loss that you want to lose, and the coach will coach you until you hit your goal weight, trying to get you to lose that weekly rate of loss. So really, you can set anything for your goal weight. And so you're saying, though, you're 135 right now, and you don't mind 135, but you want to lose body fat. So basically, you want to lose fat and build muscle at the same time, which is a very difficult thing to do unless you're a absolute beginner to weight training. So often you're going to have to lose some weight to lose body fat, at least to any appreciable degree. So I would recommend setting, maybe just aim to lose 5 pounds right now. So set it at 130 and then reevaluate where you're at and how you feel when you hit 130 pounds. Hopefully that helps there. Is it normal that my macros haven't changed for 6 weeks? If you're making progress, the coach isn't going to change things. So it sounds like either you are non-compliant, which will cause the coach to not adjust your macros, or you are within the tolerable range that you had set for making progress. So if the coach doesn't change your macros and you're compliant, I would say things are going amazingly, and I wouldn't change anything. You're welcome, Caitlin. All right, let's see here. Hi, it won't let me input a high calorie day on carbon. Do you know why, please? Thank you for your live. There are a few different reasons why it might not let you. So the Calorie Planner works on a 7-day time frame. So if you are past 7 days since you checked in, the app isn't going to let you adjust the Calorie Planner until you check in again. So maybe you need to check in. I would look into that. Another reason would be maybe you already had too many high days and you can't have any more high days while staying on track with your weekly average macro targets. So that would be another scenario. But if you have issues still, you can always reach out to support, and hopefully they can take care of that and look into it for you. Love the app. Thank you so much. Do you have to be compliant on every macro for the coach to update? For reaching carb targets, is there any preference? Fruit, veggies over... Oh, wait, I just read 2 questions. Do I have to be compliant on every macro for the coach to update? For the coach to give you updates if you need them, you have to mark that you are compliant. Now, we don't look at your food tracker and see like, oh, you ate this, so you're compliant. Just because not everybody uses the food tracker. Let's say you had an error in tracking where you forgot to track a whole meal. This happens often for me because I often eat similar meals each day. That can completely throw the coach off. So all we do is ask you, were you compliant to your macro targets? And it gives you a range when you check in. So it'll show you, protein, you need to be within 150 to 160, or carbs, you need to be 200 to 220. It'll give you that range so you can see that reference range when you check in, and it'll even show it green if you've tracked that and it's within the range. So it will show you the compliance range. And then if you mark yes, then the coach is going to evaluate, okay, what's happening with your weight, and then assume that you ate those calories because you said you did. It's going to adjust those calories to get your weight to do what you want your weight to do. So that's how the coach does adjustments. So if you just hit yes to compliant, yes, that's all you need to do. If you hit yes to compliant, the coach is going to make an adjustment to see what you need to make the progress that you have set. So yeah, it's all based on the yes or no question for now. So yeah, didn't add food for one day. How much does this affect the check-in? Well, it affects it in the sense that you're not going to be able to know it, when you check in, it's not going to show the right numbers on the side there of what you have tracked. So you have to know yourself if you actually were on track with your macros for the week, and then mark yes or no. So it's not going to, not having it in the tracker is not going to affect the coach's adjustments, but it will affect your ability to know if you were compliant or not. So hopefully you know if you're compliant or not, even if you forgot. Because like I forget to track a whole meal sometimes, but I eat the same meals like basically every day. I have a few like swing meals that I like to switch up depending on how I feel, but then I have a few like base meals that I always eat the same thing for a long period of time before I get sick of it, and then I'll switch it. So like breakfast, for example, I always have like a protein smoothie with banana, strawberry, oatmeal, protein, almond milk, and blend it up. That's like my pre-workout kind of smoothie. Have it every morning. So that's something that I always have, and it's always the same ingredients, always the same amounts. So if I forgot to track that one day, it wouldn't really matter because it's always the same. And I know that I'm still hitting my macros. So that's kind of what happens to me. I have COVID right now. Will that affect my results, or how do I monitor the app? I'm losing weight, but not working out right now as I don't have the energy. So if you have COVID, things are going to be, your weight's going to do some really crazy things. And so it's not going to really be helpful to use the coach necessarily during that time frame. I would just, eat at maintenance calories probably. So look at what your maintenance calories are and eat at around maintenance. Wait till you are completely recovered and back to your normal rhythm of everything, training and everything, and then get back on your macros that the coach had on you, and then just mark non-compliant when you check in. But yeah, you don't want to. Things are going to be so crazy when you have a sickness like that. So just wait till you're recovered, then get back at it. That's my opinion. All right. Scale weight. So this is very common, honestly. Scale weight went up overnight, but body fat went down. Thoughts on that? Use a Fitbit ARIA scale. So those scales, they work based on your fluid balance. So they typically use BIA, which is bioelectrical impedance analysis. And what that does is it basically sends an electrical signal through your body, and how quickly that goes through your body, then it kind of uses that resistance to calculate where your body fat percentage is. So it's largely based on water. And so with that said, if your weight goes up and your body fat goes down, that means that you are retaining more water than normal, because so water is going to register as lean body mass on those types of scales. So if you have more water, your body's going to say you are leaner than you actually are. If you're dehydrated, it's going to say you have more body fat than you actually do. So yeah, that's so common. The weight and the body fat typically always are in opposition to each other on those scales, just because short term, you're not going to be able to change your body composition that much. And it's often almost always due to changes in fluid balance. So don't stress about it and look at the trend over time. So that's the most important thing, is to look at what's happening over time, because that's going to be a better indicator of any body fat progress that you make. And if you want to test it, I mean, go eat like 5 grams of sodium and then weigh yourself the next day, and it'll say you have more lean body mass. So if you want to feel good by the numbers, just make sure you're retaining a ton of water, and then it'll look like you gained some muscle. Pros and cons of doing a period of maintenance in between cut and gain phases. I think it's mostly psychological. Just like having a period where you aren't necessarily pushing too hard in either direction, I think is nice to kind of give yourself like a mental reset and to kind of set yourself up for more success. So I like to have a period, where in between phases, I like to just maintain maybe for a month or so, kind of just reset my brain, get myself focused on the next phase at hand so that I can jump in 100% when I'm ready. And so that's the main thing. It's not going to really do anything different in terms of progress. So like if you do a maintenance phase or not in between cutting and gaining, it's not going to do too much. But in between cutting and gaining, you may want to do actually a reverse diet. So it'll all depend on where your calories are at, where your metabolism's at. But you may want to consider, instead of just doing a strict maintenance phase in between, maybe you do well, you could still do maintenance. So you could do a cut, go to maintenance for like, a week or two, then go right into a reverse diet, and then reverse diet right into your gain phase. So you can do an approach like that. But yeah, I like to have that kind of maintenance phase. But when you're done with a diet, you actually probably don't want to do a maintenance right when you're done with a diet, just because your metabolism is suppressed a little bit. So you're going to maintain on pretty low calories. You want to get into a reverse diet if you are dieting on lower calories. So I'd probably do fat loss, reverse diet, into a gaining if you want to do a gain. And then once your body fat gets to a level that you're not happy with, then switch over to a cut and kind of do a little bit of cyclical approach like that. But yeah, you could do a ton of different ways. Great questions today, guys. I appreciate you all. All right. I always lose my voice almost on these Fridays just because there's so much talking. Is there a way to adjust the maintenance range in the app? No. The maintenance range is plus or minus. I believe it's plus or minus like 1% or 0.75% of weight. So there'll be a range within that the app wants to keep you to maintain in. So when you change your goal to maintenance, that middle of the range is going to be your current weight when you create that goal. And then there's going to be a little bit of room above and below, so that you have room to wiggle, so that the coach isn't constantly adjusting your macros every single week. But yeah, you can't change that maintenance range in the app. We found that range that we put in there to be a pretty good range for most people. All right. Oops. What am I doing here? Let's see. Okay, some came in on Facebook, YouTube. Let me get to you guys. I've been giving Instagram too much love here. All right. Helen, have not managed a compliant week yet. Getting closer though, and I'm still losing the weight I wish to lose each week through deficit and weight training. What's the long-term issue with this approach and not reaching the coach daily targets? I want to reach them, but just haven't quite managed yet. So if you're non-compliant and you're making the progress that you are after, things are good, and you can just kind of tighten things up over time and get closer and closer each week. And then you'll get to a place where you're able to hit them. Uh, and then the coach will then start making adjustments. But it doesn't sound like you really need any adjustments from where you're currently eating because you're making the progress. You're happy with your progress. So I think just try to tighten things up over time, and eventually you will be compliant, and then the coach can take off from there and make adjustments to your macros as needed. Brian's kind of in the same boat. He said, meeting the protein goal without going over fat has been tough. So if in order to hit your protein, you're eating a ton of fat, that means you're choosing the wrong sources of protein. Not necessarily wrong, but not the best sources from a macro standpoint. So you want your protein to be relatively lean sources so that they're predominantly a single macronutrient. The more foods in your diet that are predominantly a single macronutrient, the easier it's going to be to hit any macro targets, because then you really, all you need to do is adjust the serving size of a single food, and that adjusts the macros that you're eating for a single macro. And then you can fine tune things very easily, because I need to eat more carbs, then I'll just eat more of this carb food, and that'll get me to there. So a lot of times where you're having a ton of fat with getting enough protein, you're eating fat, like fatty cuts of meat, beef and stuff like that, and not necessarily the lean stuff. I wouldn't really eat. I don't eat beef that often, just because there is a decent amount of fat in it. You can get lean stuff that would be fine, but I would aim more towards lean sources like chicken, egg whites, Greek yogurt, or no-fat Greek yogurt, fat-free cheese. If you guys are in the United States, they have fat-free cheese, which is amazing. What else? What are some more protein sources? Like tuna, other fish. Fatty fish is fine, because then you can get some omega-3s in your diet, but most of the meats you consume, you want them to be pretty low fat. And yeah, so Brian, I would look at your protein sources and try to shift them a little bit to being predominantly protein and more lean. And yeah. All right. Ryan asks, I'm cutting from 208 to 192, currently at 18%, losing 1.9 a week. When I get to my goal weight, will my body fat percentage still be at 18, or will I be at 15 or 12? That's impossible for me to say, because it all depends on how much muscle you're able to maintain as you diet and retain. So that's going to be dictated on outside factors that carbon can't control. Your weight training and that type of thing is going to be the biggest thing that's going to help you maintain muscle as you diet. So it's impossible for me to say where your body fat percentage will be at. What I can say confidently is your weight will be at 192 if you're using the coach and you keep checking in until you reach 192. Your body fat is going to kind of fall where it falls based on all of these other outside factors that happen. So hopefully you can optimize all those other things so that you're losing more body fat and not necessarily losing more muscle. Things like making sure you're getting an appropriate amount of sleep, making sure you're eating enough protein, which if you're using Carbon Diet Coach, you are going to be eating enough protein, making sure you're not dieting too fast. 1.9 pounds a week, that's semi-fast in my opinion. You could maybe slow it down a little bit just because you don't have a ton of weight to lose. But yeah, that can work yet. Making sure your weight training is intense enough, making sure you're doing enough volume. All of these things really dictate how much muscle you're going to end up with when you reach that goal. And then also not really performing too much cardiovascular exercise. If you overdo it on cardio, you might end up losing a little bit more muscle, especially in your lower extremities. So yeah, I would make sure you're trying to maintain as much muscle as possible, and then that body fat percentage will hopefully be as low as possible when you reach 192. You're welcome, Brian and Helen. Let's see. Josie, I can't remember how much meat changes once cooked. Is there a calculation I can do if I can't find an option to log the meat as cooked and can only log it as raw, but want to then weigh it cooked? Does that make sense? Doing it cooked is going to introduce the potential for more error. If you're weighing it raw, that's going to be the most accurate way to do it because of how food labels and nutrition information is gathered. So that's going to be based on the raw weight of it. So if you can weigh it raw, that's going to be the most accurate. If you can't, you will have to do some kind of fancy things to figure out what the weight of it cooked is compared to what the weight of it raw is, and then doing that math every time you track can be a real pain. But if you pick a way you do it, and as long as you do it consistently, that's what's most important. So just pick a way of weighing that food and be consistent with it, and then don't worry about it too much. And you can also try searching the food database for, a grilled chicken option where it's already cooked, and then you can track it as that, and hopefully that'll be a little bit easier for you. But yeah, there's many ways to do it. Most accurate would be to weigh the food as you've purchased it, as it's packaged, raw. That's going to be how the nutrition information is based. All right, back to IG. I used my current body fat from InBody Scan for my initial goal. If I don't add it in daily, does that matter? No, it doesn't matter. So the app uses, if you enter a body fat percentage when you create a goal, the app is going to use that to figure out where your it's going to estimate where your lean body mass is, and then use that to figure out where your starting macros need to be. So it's really just for an initial type of calculation, which is nothing too magical about an initial calculation. So it doesn't matter if you aren't going to be using body fat anymore moving forward. It's just to get started. And so don't worry about it. If you are going to plan on entering your body fat in daily or weekly or whatever into the app, then you want a method that you're going to be able to do it consistently. So I personally have like a Nokia body weight plus scale that I step on daily, and that's the body fat percentage that I enter into the app. And so since I do it daily, then I can be confident that the trend of that number is going to be more accurate over time. So then the coach can look at the trend of my body fat percentage over time and make adjustments based on that. There are a few scenarios where body fat does change the adjustment that the coach makes, whether or not the coach makes an adjustment. So if you are entering your body fat, there could be a chance that the app will use that information in your check-ins. Is the Nokia scale rebranded to Withings? Yes, it is. Yeah, it's Withings Body Plus or something like that. Where do you get fat-free cheese? Well, I get it at any grocery store, really, but the brand is Kraft, and so if your grocery store has it, it's very likely going to be the Kraft brand. If you don't see it, it's probably not available in your area. I know, like, I don't think Australia or any place like that has fat-free cheeses, but I buy like the fat-free shredded cheeses. I haven't really found like fat-free blocks of cheese. I've seen fat-free like string cheese and stuff like that. but I always buy like the fat-free shredded. Hey, please fix food scanning in Europe. Uh, we we only support US, Canada, Australia, UK food databases right now. So if you are in a country that is not supported, unfortunately, the branded foods, you're not going to be able to find those in your area. We do want to add more regions in the future, but it is insanely expensive to license the food database, and we have to purchase it for every country that we want to support. So yeah, it's something that is just really expensive, and as the demand in certain areas increases, we will like to add more database regions. But for now, this is what we got. And with that said, though, like the food tracker is not the main feature of Carbon, and the coach is the main feature of Carbon. So you can still use uh, the coach to 100%, which is the main feature of the app, and you can use a different food tracker. So you could use MyFitnessPal because they probably have a database in your region, and then just track your macros in MyFitnessPal. Use Carbon to adjust and analyze those macros and your weight, and then you'll be all set. But yeah, sorry about that. In Germany, sorry. I think Germany is towards the higher end of the list, I would say, in terms of subscribers from Europe. So who knows? Maybe you will get a region in Germany before some other countries, but I don't know. If you're particularly lean, is it normal to still feel hungry all the time, even if eating decent maintenance calories, i.e., not fat loss? Yeah, and so body fat is actually body fat secretes hormones just like other tissues in your body, and body fat secretes something called leptin, and that's really the hunger hormone. So the satiety hormone, sorry. And so if you don't have a lot of body fat, you're not going to have a lot of leptin in your bloodstream, which can cause you to be more hungry all the time. So your body is really fighting you and doesn't want to stay lean all the time. So it depends on the person. Like some people can maintain a leaner physique and not be hungry, but some people can't, and I think that's something you can change over time to where your settling point of where your body likes to be can change over time. So the more reverse dieting cycles you kind of go through, you can get to a place where you're able to um, maintain a low body fat on pretty high calories, and then the hunger is going to be better. But you'll get to a certain point in body fat percentage where no matter how many calories you eat, you're going to be pretty hungry, and that's your body telling you, like, put more body fat on me. I don't enjoy being super lean. 13 to 14% is pretty lean, yeah, for a female. But there's some females that can maintain that fine and not feel hungry. It could also be, food choices. Maybe you're eating pretty low satiety foods that's causing you to be more hungry. So maybe analyze your food choices. And then if all else fails, maybe you need to put on some body fat if you want to maintain over a longer period of time and feel normal. All right. Can you please explain the difference in macro percentages between balanced and reduced carb diet preferences? I'm trying to decide between the two. So Trisha, uh, there's so both of those settings are going to be completely fine for you. It's not like one is going to provide you with more progress than the other. It's basically for preference. It's for your preference. So that's why it's called a preference. It's not going to change the outcome. It's just how do you want to get to that outcome, and what foods do you want to eat to get to that outcome. So I would look at what your diet and foods you typically eat right now are. If they are typically lower carb foods and you enjoy eating lower carb foods, then maybe go with the reduced carb diet. But if you're a person that enjoys carbs and fats pretty equally, then balance would be the way to go. The percentage difference, I know balanced is like 55% of calories after protein, and then for carbs, and then 45% of calories after proteins removed for fat. And reduced carb, I don't remember the percentages off the top of my head, but you can see that in the app when you change the diet preference. It'll show you what the macros would be. So yeah, just make it based on the foods that you eat and what you enjoy, and then that's going to help you stick to the plan, and it's going to make everything easier. So don't get too hung up on the diet preference thing. And also you can change it at any time in the app. So just pick one that you think is best, go with it. If you don't enjoy it and you want to switch it, then you can always fine tune that. So each diet preference has a range that you can adjust within. So a balance, there's sliders that you can slide up and down. And if you want to go outside of that, you could go to reduce carb and move the sliders until you get the exact macro split that you want. So I would recommend doing that. Ryan says, Keith, you and I have the same scale. I've never seen my scale go lower than 17% body fat. Can you confirm that the scale actually does go below 10, go down to 10 to 12? Laugh out loud. Yes, it does. I think the lowest I've seen on my scale was like 7 or 8% body fat, and that's when I was really lean. So I can confirm that it does go below 17% body fat, and it goes down to 10 to 12. All right. Can you please explain how the planner option works? So the Calorie Planner is a way to adjust your macros throughout the week so that you can stay on track with your average. So that's the most important thing, is hitting your average macro targets by the end of the week. Protein is important to hit daily, so we don't allow you to change your daily protein targets. But if you adjust the Calorie Planner, it adjusts your carbs and fats each day. So if you're the person that wants to do high days or whatever, you can go into the Calorie Planner and adjust any day, up or down, or lock them if you ate that day. There's a really helpful video in our help center if you want to check it out. joincarbon.com/help should be there, and then search for Calorie Planner, and then there'll be a video there. We also have video on our Instagram. If you scroll our Instagram page, we should have a video there explaining how the Calorie Planner feature works specifically. But general overall high view is, if you aren't going to eat the same macros every day, that's where the Calorie Planner option comes into play. Let's see. Okay. Been in a deficit for about 8 weeks. Once I hit my goal weight, if I want to gain muscle, should I reverse diet, or do I have to be in a surplus to gain muscle? So Nick, so a reverse diet, it's going to start you out at your estimated maintenance, but then it's going to put you in a slight surplus every single week. It's going to constantly be trying to increase your metabolism. So it's going to be putting in more and more calories. So every week, let's say this week you're at maintenance, it adds in some calories. It's going to put you right above your kind of maintenance range, and then in hopes that your maintenance range is going to shift up and you're going to be able to maintain eating those. So over time, you're going to keep increasing calories. And so you could always use that for a gain phase. If you want to build muscle, you can use a reverse diet setting. That can work as well. I think using reverse dieting instead of gaining can be nice because it doesn't force you to gain weight every single week. So that's the main distinction between reverse diet setting and the gain setting. Is the gain is going to, you're going to set a weekly gain that you want to gain, and the app is going to adjust your calories until you're gaining that amount each week. Reverse diet is kind of more in it increases calories as long as you aren't gaining too much weight. So there's a small distinction there that is going to dictate which goal you should go with, but you can build muscle pretty good on either one of those settings. So I personally like doing the reverse diet setting, just because the more advanced you are in training, the less likely you're going to be able to gain muscle like each week or quickly. So that's where not forcing yourself to gain weight and gain unnecessary body fat is probably a good idea. And then I would go with, a reverse. So it all is based on your experience level. If you're newer, maybe newer to weight training, maybe you can go with the gain setting and focus on gaining a certain amount of weight each week. Otherwise, maybe reverse is fine. But 8 weeks in a deficit isn't terribly long, so it's not like your metabolism is adapted too much, in my opinion. So you couldn't go wrong with either setting, but which one you go with is going to be dictated on, do you want to gain weight each week and the coach is going to force you to gain weight, or do you want it to be more like increase calories until you're gaining weight? Let's see. So you suggest doing a reverse diet after you finish your cut. It depends. If you're doing a longer cut, yes, you very often want to do a reverse diet after you do a cut. It's going to help undo a lot of those metabolic adaptations that happen when you're dieting. If you didn't diet for too long and didn't take your calories too low, you can get away with not reverse dieting after. It all depends on where your metabolism's at. So kind of evaluate at the end of your cut, like where your maintenance calories are at. How do you feel if you had to eat at those maintenance calories? If they're too low, then I would consider reverse dieting. If you're happy with where your maintenance calories are at after you're done dieting, you could always just hit maintenance and stay there and just ride it out. So it depends. Like most things, the answer is it depends. But let's see. I think I have time for one more question here. I'll answer one more, and then I'm going to hop off for the day. Let's see. Where's one good one? Let's see. All right, this is one that a lot of people struggle with. Is protein. And question in the comments: how often do you do these lives? We do them every single Friday. So either myself, Lane, or Holly hop on here and do a live stream every single Friday around 2 or 3 p.m. So be sure to tune in every Friday. Back to the question. So I was saying a lot of people struggle with hitting their protein just because people's diets typically, if you don't think about it, they're going to tend to be more carb and fat based, just because that's the food that's in our system, in our distribution more often. Go to the grocery store, like the majority of things are carbs or fats. Sugar or fat, is very palatable. So those are things that are very easy to get in our diets, where protein is something you have to be more conscious. So every single day you need to think about what your protein sources are going to be. And if you're struggling to reach your target, by far the easiest way to hit your protein target is to get a whey protein powder. I think that's like, you should always have that backup in your house, is have some protein powder so you can always hit your protein targets if you need to. But drinking your protein is obviously not that fun. So over time, you want to introduce more foods that are higher in protein into your diet. Things like my main protein sources: chicken, tuna, egg whites, fat-free cheese, Greek yogurt, protein powder, and then a lot of residual protein from other foods. So protein is going to be in other things like grains, and that type of thing is going to have protein as well. But your main sources, you want to make sure that they are lean, and so you can get in more protein without getting in more carbs and fats with it. You want to look at foods and see if they're predominant, that's going to be a good protein source. And so look at the foods that you're consuming, evaluate them, and make sure that you're having a good source of protein at every single meal. Like you want to, that's the first thing I think about when I think about what I'm going to eat is, okay, what's my protein source going to be for this meal? And then I base everything else around that. So you have to consciously think about protein and making sure that you're getting enough each day. Easy thing to do is look at your total protein for the day, then divide it evenly by all the meals that you're going to consume. So let's say you want to consume 3 meals a day. Take your total protein, divide it by 3, then make sure you are hitting that protein target at each meal. If you get behind, it's going to be hard to get caught back up without stuffing your face with more protein or chugging protein shakes. So make it a conscious thing every single meal. Make sure you're reaching that meal protein target that you have set for yourself, and then you should be fine. But hopefully that helps with the protein there. Time is up for this live stream. I appreciate everybody tuning in. We do these every Friday, like I said. So next Friday, I believe it's Holly next Friday. So tune in. We appreciate everybody. If you guys aren't subscribed to Carbon, you can download it in the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. It's $9.99 a month for custom macro coaching that some coaches charge hundreds of dollars a month for. So it's definitely a great value. If you guys enjoy the app, be sure to give it a good rating in the app stores. That really helps with our exposure as well. So if you enjoy the app, we would appreciate a 5-star rating in the app stores, and appreciate everybody tuning in. Hope everybody has a great weekend, and we'll catch you next week.